This is the natal chart for Nadine Colton. One, I am so sorry this took so long. Um, Various reasons. One, I just learned how to make videos on my laptop. And two, I was incredibly self-conscious and insecure about my skills and talents as learning how to do astrology. Um, but that's neither here nor there. So I apologize for how late this got to you. But now is the moment, and I'll make it up to you. So I practice a different kind of astrology. As you'll notice that I don't use the standard kind of charts that most people do. Um, I practice what is called true sky sidereal astrology. Um, I use the stars that are actually in the sky the day you were born. This is a picture of the heavens the day you were born. So as you can tell, you are your sun is in Gemini. You are a rising Virgo. Now I'm going to show you why you're a Virgo. Your rising sign is in Virgo. Okay. Now, in traditional astrology, you would see Libra starts at the hand, which is why you'll see pictures of the woman or the goddess holding scales in her hand. So from here to about here, they count that as Libra. So as you see how big Libra is one of the smallest signs in the zodiac. Um, so there, you know, in Ezekiel, they described, an angel having an eye and within rings, within circles, right? Um, that's a metaphor for the cosmos, right? So the calendar we would use for agriculture isn't the same one we would use for animal husbandry. The calendar we would use for hunting isn't the same as we'd use for uh, regulating taxes. Um, so so Virgo is the biggest sign in our zodiac, and it is actually almost, I do believe I do believe it's like 60 days for the sun to travel through Virgo. It is almost exactly 2 months, which is why they split it in half. So you're not actually a rising Libra, you're a rising Virgo. I will get into what that actually entails. Um, so you can see that, right? So from the east, as the sun rises, so where the sun rises is your rising sign. In the east, that's Virgo. Where it sits on the day you were born is Gemini. Um, okay, you know, normally I start off in the some of your furthest away planets like Pluto, Neptune, Uranus. But in this case, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start in Mars and Taurus. Um, for the love of God, of your friends and family, don't work so hard. You are a hardworking person, but you're when you take vacation, when you go on vacation, don't go to your next project. Don't like, oh well, um, I've got 3 weeks off. Well, I better remodel the kitchen, or that deck isn't gonna build itself. Like literally, you take days off, read a book with a cup of tea. Don't do shit. Maybe fold a little bit of laundry. Uh, Generally, you're gonna work yourself to an early grave if you keep working how you work. Um, I understand that it's like you're working toward these days when you're going to get to retire, and that's when I'm going to get to enjoy my grandkids, or I'm going to get to enjoy that garden, that all this stuff that you think you're all that stuff in the future that you're working hard towards. But if you don't stop and smell the roses while they're blooming, when you next time it's time when you're like, oh well, now I have time to stop and smell those roses, it's gonna be winter and there's gonna be no roses. There's gonna be no roses to smell because the roses are not in season. You know, you have to you have to take time to enjoy what you have while you have it, because if you think you're gonna have time later, you just might not have that time. So, generally, when I see people with this placement, I normally want to tell them this first and foremost: stop working so hard. You already work so much harder than most people. Take the time to enjoy what you have now, or you might find yourself not able to be in a place to enjoy it. You know, you'll have worked yourself into an early grave. You know, is one of the is one of the faults of having Mars in Taurus, right? Uh, you can get so much done and you can accomplish so much and you are a hardworking person. But if all you do is work, you will not enjoy, you'll never get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, you know? So stop, take a break. When you have days off, read a book, watch a show. Like, you know what I mean? Watch, watch your stories. Do something that is not related to work, like, like, unless you actually gonna like putz around your garden or your flower beds, like, or um I'm not sure if you garden or not, but but I'm saying, like, don't make, oh, that's what I do when I'm not working, I'm always doing another project, no, stop. Actually go on vacation where you don't actually have to like work. Enjoy your grandkids, enjoy your company and the company you have. Don't, when you have free time, don't make other projects like remodel your kitchen or build that garage, or well, I've got to build those planter boxes. Like, take some time for yourself. Take a spa day. Uh, curl up and read a book. Drink some tea. You know what I'm saying. You don't always have to be working to be. Sometimes not working is literally the best thing you can do. Um, Not like I'm trying to tell you how to live your life, but this is your uh this is your astrology chart. So I'm just saying, people with this placement have a serious tendency to literally never stop in the present to enjoy what they have now, because they're always like, oh no, why, I'll have time later. And because of how hard they work, they miss out on so much. So I'm put this away. Look at that, Pluto in Virgo. um Pluto is the furthest planet away. It's where we have our power. If you can understand the very strange and cathartic nature of the god of death, Hades. Um, and I'll show you this. This is very much, you have it in hand in hand. You have it almost in hand. It's in the stalk of wheat. So you have Spica and you have Pluto hand in hand. Um, hmm. If you don't garden, you should. Um, Whether it be like flower beds or like you should definitely have how plants in your house. Um, if not, you should guard. Definitely, if you don't garden, you should. Um, it would uh very soothing for you. It's a really good way to relax and um like you said, it's a really good way to hone your personal power. Um, is literally to like I said, with death, the planet of death being in hand in hand with the seed of life. Um, you This really brings out the archetype of Persephone. Um, you know you know, the partner to the god of the underworld, Pluto, right? Um, yeah, so definitely garden. If not house plants, you should definitely have them. Uh, yeah. Also, writing. You should write because also you look at this, it looks like a quill, right? Or a pen. Um, so either you write a lot for your job, for what you do for a living, or you should do more writing that is more creative, like poetry or keeping a journal or something like that. That would be another good thing for you. Um, as a way to like really take back your personal power. As I find that actually, if you understand the whole story of Persephone, um, like the rape of Persephone is a classical Greek literature where she was whisked away to the underworld by the god Hades. Yeah. Which means I'm gonna say that you are a very strong-minded woman, and that you um have a very nurturing mind. Um, like I said, Persephone, goddess of the underworld, very the most mortal of the gods, right? She almost came off as human, which is what made her so beautiful. Um, so yeah, you are a very soft-hearted. Your strength comes from being very soft in your power. True power is like water. It's gentle, right? Water is enough time will cut through any rock. You can't punch water. You can't grasp water. But if you're delicate and you scoop up water, as long as you're gentle with water, you can hold it. But you can't contain it. Not the way you can. Uh, you get what I'm saying? Um, yeah, definitely writing, growing, um, painting. You should definitely, if you're not artistic, you should definitely take the time to explore uh being more artistic in your life. You will find that, and for the sake of creating, not like I said, not building a deck or being creative like that, literally for no other sake than the sake of creating, for the art, for the sake of art, you know. Why can't I spell that word right now? Where we have Uranus placed in our chart is usually where we have our inner rebel, our, our chaos, the troublemaker, the mold breaker. You have Uranus in actually in your Libra placement, which is a good place for it. Um, you broke the mold by being very balanced. Like when other people rebelled by like drinking and doing drugs and being out late and being bad, you you did it by being good. I'm not saying that you don't like to drink or you don't smoke the weed or you've never tried drugs and alcohol, but you definitely didn't overindulge and you broke the mold by being a well balanced and well thought out person, and that this is something that has stayed true to you throughout your life. You are very mindful and very thoughtful in things. Like you're like, why is somebody like and other people you're like you'll be able to see, well, why is this teenager acting out? Why is this person acting the way they are? And you can see through it. You're like, oh, they've got daddy issues, or they've got mommy issues, or oh, this person was treated horribly by a teacher or some authority figure, or you can see through why people are acting out the way they are, why they're rebelling. Because of where your Uranus is, you're able to uh see it very clearly, because this is something that you had to fight against yourself. You're like, do I want to go out and like party and be a baddie because it's fun sometimes, but there are reasons why you didn't, and because it was better for you to be this more balanced out person. um Not saying we don't all have our moments, we don't make mistakes, and we don't sometimes, but that's how we learn, right? You The only way to learn is by to make mistakes, right? Even you're like, oh god damn it, I'm gonna regret this. And you did, and you have your regrets, but that's how we learn, right? um yeah. uh let's see more about Uranus if I can. um yeah, so like I said, you're definitely well balanced in your chaos. You when time when it's time for, it's like, fine, fuck it, you're all for it. When it's time for shit to be destroyed, because you know what, only way for things to the only way for new things to grow is for the old to to be taken down. That's the natural order of things. That's how we have balance. When things become out of balance, something has to be removed. It You see that very, very, very clearly. I could go further into that, but I'm pretty sure you get that. Let's see here. I'm gonna go into Neptune here. Ooh, your Neptune is in Scorpio, or it's also more or less in the house of Orpheus. Neptune Okay, the symbol for psychology is Neptune's trident. Now, what this symbolizes is your deeper emotional self and how your mind naturally functions. And your personal psychology is that you're a healer. You're very much so. You want to. How can I? When you see someone suffering or hurting, your like I said, your Uranus in Libra shows you how they're hurting, and with your Neptune in Orpheus slash Scorpio, you're like, how can I help? Um, Nurturing, even though it comes off as cold, because again, you have to understand, Scorpio is the house of death. It's the eighth house. This is like the scorpion sting is found in Scorpio. Um, fall. When when the harvest comes and the leaves fall, the animals start going to sleep. You know, winter is coming. So despite the fact that emotionally you can come off as very cold, it's quite the opposite. You're cold because your shell protects you. Um, because you also you have to be able to sting. Um, this is the lesson of Scorpion. Um, but emotionally in its core, you might be cold emotionally, but it's quite the opposite. You're actually quite sensitive to um emotionally sensitive. You're emotionally your emotions run very deep, and you're actually very sensitive. Like, like it might not show, but like, when no one's looking, you're like, if someone you really care about hurts your feelings, like it can sting deep. And when no one's around, it'll hurt, but you don't want them to see that. But generally, generally at the root, you're a healer, psychologically. So I wouldn't be surprised. Like I said, I'm not sure what you do for a living, but I could definitely see you being drawn to psychology and as like social work. Um, I could see these things being very much like minded, like like the whole idea to help others who don't have these tools that you were naturally blessed with, to literally help themselves, right? Because again, that's the other thing too, is like a true healer. A true healer never heals someone all the way. It's like you can help with the process, but in the end, they've got to heal themselves, right? People have to heal themselves, and you can only do that if you have the proper tools. And you definitely want to help people find those right tools. That's something like that, very much so, and it's very deeply ingrained into your psychology and emotional state of being, that generally at the end of the day you want to help people be better at being themselves, because you have a very uh uh natural you're naturally inclined this way. You were born with a very good idea of self. You knew who you were from a real early age. You're like, this is what I want. This is who I am. I mean, like, don't get us wrong. We all get fucking confused in our teens, but I feel as though that from a pretty early age, you had a pretty good idea of who you were, what it is that you wanted, and kind of like how you were gonna get it. Uh, so again, I could be wrong, but I'm probably not. Um, okay. All right. You have your Saturn in Leo. Now, this is actually a really good placement for it. Saturn in Leo. Um, I like to call this Leo is the sun, right? It's also where we have our inner child. You need to do inner child work. Um, One of your biggest issues is that you're way too fucking serious. Way too serious at times. You need to soften up. Because one of the things about Saturn is asking you to um and one of these lessons I got a feeling for you will be when you have grandchildren. When you start dealing with your grandkids, you're gonna find that this is really gonna help make you uh open up to your inner child. You know, like when we have our Saturn's return right around about 30, 31, 29, depending on your depending on well, your particular chart. Sometimes it's 29, sometimes it's 30, sometimes it's 31. Uh it depends on, like I said, your personal chart. Uh these are lessons that we come back into. Um so one of the things about Saturn being in Leo is that uh we're really being tested in our ability to acknowledge our inner child. Like, can we be silly? Can we be childish? When is it all right to be those things? Um, because again, Saturn's also the old king of the heavens. That's old man Kronos, the god of karma, the god of time. That's why he carries a sickle or a scythe. Um, you know, so learn to be more silly, learn to be more playful, learn to engage things in a more playful way. Not everything has to be so serious. Also, with Saturn placed there, um, you might be. I also call this the Black Panther. The instead of being like a lion, you're more like a big old black cat. Um, like a panther, like you're not out in the savannah hunting. You're more like you're more like a panther stalking the branches at night. Uh still still queen of her domain, but goes about it differently. Um you you might feel as though that you have not been recognized for what it is that you have to contribute throughout life, because a lot of it's, like I said, the Black Panther, a Black Panther, big old black cat, um, stalks their prey at night. Like in the darkness of night, where others can't see what they do. So you, very much so, don't like the limelight. You kind of like being behind the scenes, doing stuff where other people can't see you. Like, if you were working with a let's say you were working with a play, like like a stage production of some kind, you would be best suited as the stage manager. The person who makes sure all the props are where they need to be, everyone's on their places. The person up in the rafters is where they are, got the right strings, everything's, because if the stage manager was shit, people can get hurt, things aren't going to go right. Like the stage manager is the person who makes sure everything flows properly. You get what I'm saying? So again, you have a need to keep your hands on the reins, but you don't like people seeing that you're like conducting things from behind the scenes, right? But when it times when it comes time for recognition, again, you don't want a big old, like, you come up here and take a big old bow. A quiet, just to be acknowledged for what you contribute is more than enough for you. You just want to be acknowledged for what it is that you contribute, to whether it be at work, whether it be in your family life, in your social life, you know, because again, Saturn crosses all of those boundaries. Um, you just want to be acknowledged for what it is that you contribute, even though more often than not, it's behind the scenes, it's hidden, and that's kind of how you like it. But you should definitely do something that puts you in the limelight from time to time, like karaoke or something. Like do something that puts you out there. It would really, really help you in a lot of ways. One, to break that stigma, because you, even though it is behind the scenes and isn't, but if you're always hiding and shunning the spotlight, no one will, congratulate you for the thing that you do. If that makes any sense. Okay. Jupiter in Cancer with Mercury. Um, Jupiter is the planet of expansion. So in the house of the mother. So you are, wow. As a mother and a woman, you are larger than life. And I would almost say magical as fuck. Um, absolutely. With Mercury, because normally Mercury would be in a detriment there, but with Jupiter expanding it, you, um, how to put this? Um, Jupiter in the house of Cancer is the house of the mother. Um, Jovial, larger than life. Um, Jupiter is the male name for Jove, which is the father god. In Greek or Etruscan or pre Greek, it would have also been Juno, right? Uh, the All Mother, right? The mother of all, right? The Empress, the Queen of Heaven. So when I say that you are the embodiment of mother, yeah, you you are large personality, loving but stern. When the flood happened in Cancer, right? When mom said that's enough, the heavens opened up and she flooded the planet, and fuck, it was time to get to your room. Don't make me come up there. That was a that resonates like with who you are. Don't make me come up there. Oh my god, I won't come up empty handed. And I mean, with Mercury there, that really sent those little kids' minds of a spinning, because they believed you. They're like, "Oh my God, is she gonna bring a belt? Is she gonna bring a chair? Are she gonna is she gonna hit us with a chair?" But but again, I mean, I'm not saying that you abused your kids. I'm just saying that kids got sometimes a kid needs a spanking, and that's you know, because again, you know, but also with that Jupiter expansion, you don't get too crotchety. From the one thing about Cancer, having a strongly placed Cancer, a lot of times that people don't want to shed their skin. They get sedentary. The crab doesn't want to molt its, crack out of the old and into the new. With that expansion there, when it's time for change, you're like, oh yep, time to change, which is really good. So you don't really get caught up in having to change, or when it's time to shed your skin. you do so quite easily because again with Jupiter and that expansion, you don't really get. You're like, oh, but I like this shell. It's like, nope, it's time for a new shell. It's time for a new skin. And Mercury is where our mind is. So in your youth, you could have been misunderstood a lot because Mercury in the house of water, it can be very detrimental. So like you could have been real quiet. I don't think you had any um any speech impediments, but I could have seen you like you know I could have seen you being held back a grade because you didn't talk like in kindergarten. Like when you're really little, you're like you were real shy. You didn't say much. You know like like when you were quite younger, that people thought there almost could have been something wrong with you. Like, oh, is she deaf? Is like, does she have a language problem? But it was just like you were really quiet. You're really observant. Because or you could have been really, really soft spoken or something like that. With your Mercury and your water has a um people either have a hard time understanding you or you had a hard time understanding people. I could see that was more or less you had a hard time understanding people because you kind of saw through a lot of like the bullshit and lies that most of society is built on. Like we have this whole idea that, like be a good person. If you're a good person and you do the right thing, good things will happen, which is almost entirely bullshit. And like, all the little lies we tell people that that aren't true, that we wish the world was, you saw through that as a very young person. And so like you needed to figure that out before you started talking because you didn't want to be misconstrued. You didn't want people to not hear you. So again, you have this really thing with your Saturn place where it is. You want people to hear you. You want your words to be taken seriously as they should, but you also don't want to say a lot. You know what I mean? Like you want to say things as crystal clearly as possible. And with that Jupiter expanding on, because again, wherever Jupiter is, it expands everything. So with Jupiter right there, you know your words have power. You say things, shit happens. You know what I mean? Like, like I can imagine, I could see you being like getting mad, and you're like at your kids, and they're like, "What the hell?" And the kids just scatter because they know they're in trouble. Like, or someone makes you mad, like you're just like, "Whew, you, you've had it," and you're like, "What the effing f?" And people scatter because no one wants to deal with you. You are like they have awoken the Kraken, and you are heads are gonna fucking roll. I mean that not literally, but you get what I'm saying. Because the Jupiter expands the power of your words. It amplifies the power of your word, right, and your mind. So yeah. So as a youngin, you were quiet because you didn't want to say things that would like you would say things that like struck true to the heart of something and people like look at yeah. And kids aren't supposed to say shit like that. You know what I mean? Kids are supposed to like be seen, not heard, and or you'd ask a question that was like and the parents wouldn't the grown-ups wouldn't know how to respond because it's not a regular kid question, right? And even to this day, so like now, as an adult woman, you definitely find yourself more in tune with this. Uh, so you still don't like to say, you, you would rather say more with less than say a whole bunch that isn't the right wording for that. Less is more. you can say a whole bunch with a whole lot less. Because sometimes people who just use a whole lot of words are just filling fucking empty space with empty words. And that ain't your style. You would much rather just cut to the fuck point of the matter. Sun and Gemini. For you, communication is key. Sun is where we keep our spirit. Uh, where everything really shines. And that's in the sign of Gemini, the twins. Um, yeah, communication. Communication is key for you. Um, if there's a problem, you want to fuck solve it and you want to use your words. Hey, what's wrong? What happens? Well, why do you feel like that? So again, I feel as though that you definitely have a job. You find yourself in a place where, work wise, communication, you know, social work, public relations. Um, Again, I kind of feel as though you're probably closer to doing something like, uh, community orientated. Um, Again, especially with Venus being connected to this, Venus always connects us as the heart. Um, because also Venus is also called the light bringer. It's also the second largest, or the second brightest object in the heavens. Some people also refer to it as their second sun. So with Venus and the sun being, so you've got the sun in Castor, and you have the sun in Pollux, and you have Venus in Castor, balancing out the Gemini. So like one of the problems with Gemini when it's not really well aspected is like if it's got too much light on one side and not enough on the other. This is where we get the whole like two-faced Gemini kind of like archetype. But you have a very well balanced Gemini sign. Your Gemini is very well aspected, so you are not two-faced in that way, even though you are very dualistic. Your sun is in one side, but your femininity is in the other. So like so you can come off as very strong and powerful woman, which can really throw off men. Men are like, oh my god, the whole the whole the whole too much woman for one man to handle sort of like um archetype, right? Could very much be said for you. Um, but for those who can when when the sun's not shining in the sunshine, when the sun travels through the heavens and nighttime comes, Venus will shine in that sign, and it's time for mama to let her hair down, and you're not quite as formidable as you portray yourself to be, like, and that's part of the illusion for any man you've allowed into your life. um it's a really big lesson. So for you and for them is to one, remember that the sun isn't always shining, and that when the sun isn't shining, to allow yourself time to be vulnerable, to be that, to be the other woman that you are. Because again, you're dual aspected, right? With a Gemini. So, you know, and I'm gonna say something about that. With Venus being, as you can see it, it's in the feet. Um, since you probably spend a lot of time on your feet doing stuff, your feet get sore. I would find that a really good way to your heart is through your feet. You know, a good foot rub. You know what I mean? Like a man who can rub your feet is a fast way to your heart. Like, and especially someone who can see through the illusion of who you are when the sun is up versus when the sun is down, who can see the two sides of you. You know what I mean? Because we all have roles to play, right? Mother, uh, mother, wife, daughter, sister, um, whoever you are at work, right? These are all masks we have to put on. And especially with Geminis are really good at knowing, um, putting on their masks and then taking off their masks. But some people don't understand that we are not our masks. Our masks are just titles that we put on throughout the day, or different hats we put on. Got to put on your mommy hat. Go out there and fucking throw some peroxide on a straight knee. Slap the kid on the butt. Send him back out there. Um, the wife hat. That's a different hat. But at the end of the day, though, you're Nadine. You're you're who you are. You know, and at the end of the night, when that sun goes down, that Venus is there, that's who you are. That's who you actually are. And anyone who can actually see who you are, despite your hat, because you're not your hat, you're not your mask, you are who you are. And anyone who can see you for who you are is worth the time and the effort to see. But you also have to be able to see yourself, if that makes any sense. Um, um, I already talked about Mars and Taurus, but where our Mars is usually where we also find our men, the men in our lives. Um, for you, it's almost like finding a man who works almost as hard as you do is you're like, I don't need a man. But again, we all need company. You'll need someone who can you'll need you need someone who can because you're so hardworking with the Mars in in Taurus, like I told you, a man who can learn to rub your feet, you know, is a man after your heart. That's definitely something I'm gonna say. Uh, I think is true, despite the fact I don't know you. Um, you know, uh, get over the fact that finding a man who might not work as hard as you or do as much as you, or but you need to find someone who will appreciate you for what you do. And once you find someone who can appreciate you for what it is what you contribute and what you offer, because again, the bull is a beast of burden. And if you're gonna be this person who does all this work and effort for you, your family, and your relationship, you need a person who will like tell you, hey, stop working so hard, clean your hooves, brush you, take care of take care of you so that way you can do more work. Because they know you're not gonna stop, but they can at least help you find the time to enjoy when you're not working, to enjoy it. If that makes any sense. Um, nice. So your moon is in Sagittarius, and how we see our moon is usually how we see our mothers, and our mothers are generally how if we're feminine is how we learn to see ourselves. and how we see ourselves. And if we're men, it's usually how we learn to view the other women in our lives. So, oh, real fast, sorry. Jupiter is how we usually see our father. Um, so again, I would see that your mother, very important in your household. I almost want to say, like, if your father wasn't around, he was always working or gone, so mom really like ran the coop. Or your dad was your mom, very maternal, and lived. So either your dad wasn't around or your dad was always around and he was very caring and very nurturing, or your mom fucking ran the show. Um, because where we see Jupiter placement is usually how we see our father. And literally how we are, like I said. So with such a strong placement in the house of the mother, I could see it either that your dad not around often, so your mother portrayed a lot of the role of father, which I'm gonna get into because that's I'm kind of thinking that's closer to the case because with your full moon, the full moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is seen as a very masculine sign, even if it's so again, your mom, no one to fool around with. Uh Not that she was uncaring, uh smart. Your mother was very smart, very intelligent, uh natural intelligence, because Sagittarius is the centaur, uh Chiron, like the healer, the teacher of kings, philosophy, uh naturopathic remedies, uh medicine. All of these things are usually associated with Chiron, which is like the king of the centaurs. Philosophy, theology, these things. So your mom, real smart, um, educated. If not educated, she was definitely within the realms of probably like very knowledgeable in folk remedy, like like folk or natural wisdom. Like could have had a in the true church. Like I'm not talking uh, like Catholicism. I mean like like that good that good down to earth. What I'm looking for good Christian learning, real Christian learning. I don't mean like like do unto others. I mean like like that real Christian learning. I could see her being like that. I'm not sure about having an actual higher education, even though she probably could have. Um, which really brings off into you. You are, like you. Uh, I'm not sure how much travel you've done, but you've always had a really strong wanderlust. You've wanted to go out and travel and see the world, but you know, home and hearth, right? Do you want to go out? Do you want to go out and see the world, or can you read a book or watch a show and be like, oh, and get a real good idea of what the world's like from that? Because I see you wanting to travel, but not traveling because, like I said, there's stuff about home and hearth that have kept you, whether it be children, marriage, education, job, has always kept you kind of tied to home. Um, but I could always see the fact that you've wanted to travel, but haven't traveled as much as you'd like, um, which is okay because that's like a goal that you could always pursue later in life. Um, Again, philosophy, theology, things that intrigue you. Like I said, that goes back to your Neptune in Orpheus and stuff like you psychology, the workings of the mind, how to like psychology and philosophy are psychology is how we think, philosophy is why we think. So you have a good grasp of philosophy and your own personal philosophy in life. Um, that is very naturally attuned to you. Yeah, um, definitely. Also, again, goes back to this whole growing thing. Um, if like so if you don't garden, you should. If you don't have houseplants, you should. Um, I think it would be really beneficial if you you know um dancing too, music, creativity for the sake of creativity. You sing a lot to yourself when no one's around. When you're doing stuff, you're like, hmm, 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 hmm. We're singing a little song, and that's how you know you're in a good mood. Is that because one of the things you have to understand is that um in every religion, when we pray, we sing to God. You know, um, and when God comes down to earth, we dance, right? So and this is uh something that is highlighted in Sagittarius. Um, because in Sagittarius he's also Sagittarius, Chiron was raised by the seven muses, right? Like poetry, each one of them is a different artistic, creative expression, right? And that's why. So again, if you don't sing, you probably like sing to yourself, like when you're like, you know, whatever kind of music you like to sing, you can sing to yourself. Whatever song, if you're cooking in the kitchen, you're probably singing a song. If like hell, you might even dance in the kitchen while you're chopping your vegetables. You know, and that's when you're in a really good mood. Like yeah, which is probably something you learned from your mother. Um, Again, so I'm gonna switch to this here. So again, you'll notice that this says your ascending sign is Libra, but I said your ascending sign is uh is Virgo. But again, this is not uh true to the actual size of each zodiacal sign. Um, um, Hold on a second. Okay. So yeah, this is well, Pluto in your 12th house. So with um strongly placed Virgo people, so since you're ascending Virgo or Sun in Virgo, um you Virgo is no nonsense, right? People who are ascending Virgos or Sun in Virgo are generally no nonsense. Like seeing is believing, seeing is believing. So like this whole like astrology, herbology, woo woo bullshit. You have no time for it because it's generally in your mind it's woo woo. It's not real, right? Unless it's not. Especially but with this with your Pluto placement in the 12th house, um with the 12th house is the house the gateless gate or the house of unseen enemies, where you have your powers in your 12th house. Um so generally, um your power is hidden, but it's also where it's in the subconscious of the collective subconscious. So you have the ability to see into other people in a way that others just don't get. You have like laser like focus and ability to see other people's darkness. Like if you're like, ooh, I don't like that person, and you know, a couple months or a year later, you'll find out that that person was arrested for having child porn on his computer. You're like, oh, I knew it, I never liked that guy. Or you find out that that dude, oh, this is my boyfriend, and you're just like, nope, I don't like him. And sure as shit, when no one's around, he beats his girlfriend, you know, or you can see people's darkness. It's like you have a no bullshit meter on that, and it's like, and it's laser like, pew pew. You see it, like fuck around, like it like your no bullshit meter is your no bullshit meter is like off the chart. Um, so your Chiron is, oh wow, you have a grand Tron meet. I was better at this. I could tell you some stuff about that. Um, you have two grand trines in, you have one in fire and you have one in air. Your sun is opposite your moon. That is, so who you see yourself to be and who and where you learned motherhood from is opposite each other. You've grown into the woman that you were always meant to be, which is really, really cool. Um, Chiron opposite Uranus. Again, like I was saying, how like your Chiron's the healer, and it's opposite your it's opposition to Uranus. Um, so you're kind of being asked to find your healing, your gifts of healing, to be in balanced and fair, which is like I was saying before about your Uranus, where you're like your inner rebel, and you're being asked to be rebellious in how you do your healing, which is generally in being yourself and being true to yourself. Um, that's really funny too. Um, your vertex is generally where we find our soulmate. Your vertex is this right here, next to Mars, where we find our relationships. So finding a man who's hardworking like yourself, or and is able to be like, hey, you stop working, come here, let me rub your feet, and letting you and see you for you. You know, like when you're not wearing whatever hat, you know, when you find I'm with your chart, I'm probably assuming you already have them. Because this is a pretty dope ass chart you have here. Um, yeah. So you're definitely being asked to with your healing, because you can see it, because your Uranus sextiles to your south node in Aquarius, and sextiles back up to your and it goes boom from there, from Chiron to your sun, and then sextiles to uh back down to goes boom. Oh no, from sextiles from Chiron to the sun. It does a lot of stuff. I'm still learning how to do some of these more like the lines, but so yeah, your healing is definitely being asked to be a healer in by being yourself and being balanced in how you view things. Like separate your creation from your destruction, your chaos from your order. You know, like how to be a rebel by by you know being rebellious, by being good, by doing right, by being generous, by being compassionate, by being helpful. You know, instead of being rebellious by being rebellious, by doing what you're not supposed to, by like how most people see being rebellious. um yeah. Let me see here, how long have I been doing this for now? An hour and 10 minutes I've been doing this for. Okay. Um, well, like I said, I've been doing this for an hour now. So I'm gonna get off. I hope this was accurate to some degree for you, and shows you how different like an true sky astrology is from regular astrology. Um, like I said, this is called sidereal astrology. It is a form of Vedic astrology. Um, I find it's way more accurate to when you're trying to do certain things. Um, I hope the mic, the sound, comes through properly. I don't have a microphone for my computer yet, so I'm still just using the mic that's naturally here, so I can't really keep it close until I've done it all. Um, Once again, I am really sorry this took so long for me to do. I hope this resonates with you, and God bless you. So also, if you're interested in more interested in what some of this stuff means, you can literally look up where like you can go uh Sun, Gemini, ninth house, and you can look up what each one of these means per se. Like I said, I'm still learning, and B, I'm not so much into that. I think more people need to look up stuff for themselves to get a better idea of what stuff means to them. And because as we explore our natal chart, we have a better idea of who we are. And like, this is stuff that our parents should have done for us when we were being born. Back in the day, they would have consulted. Back in the day, those who were planning on having children would have consulted elders, and they would have got a proper natal chart before their child was born, so that way they could have a blueprint as to what the personality of the child was going to be like before they were born. Um, yeah, like I said, sorry this took so long. Thank you, and I'm sorry it took so long.